In the wake of the alleged Chicago kidnapping, I have noticed that the story of a black man in Detroit, Idaho keeps cropping up. Indeed, in Shaun King's column in the New York Daily News, he mentions it, after first saying, "I speak out on injustice. What happened to this man in Chicago was terrible. It was criminal. I hate it. But guess what? Justice was swift." Which is rather an odd thing to say, given that none of the four accused have been convicted of anything, and indeed at the time Mr. King wrote this, they had not even been charged. But leaving that aside, according to Mr. King, the important thing is not to link Black Lives Matter to events, and to prove it, Mr. King then goes out of his way to link Black Lives Matter by devoting the rest of his column to talking about Black Lives Matter. And I notice that Black Lives Matter's sister organisation, Media Matters, has also weighed in on the action, with the assertion that those making the link are the alt-right, and by extension, white supremacists. I'll leave you to work out why Black Lives Matter are going out of their way to answer the question, when did you last beat your wife? So, back to Idaho, and why it is indicative of Shaun King's thinking. In October 2015, a black man with a mental disability was allegedly assaulted by 3 teammates on the school football team, the allegation being that one of them held him in a bear hug while a second inserted a coat hanger in his rectum, and the third is alleged to have kicked the coat hanger while it was still allegedly in his rectum. Additionally, there are allegations of racial abuse and further allegations relating to a song associated with the Ku Klux Klan. The only connection that I can see between this case and the alleged kidnapping in Chicago is that both of the victims had some form of mental illness or disability, hence why I say it is informative of Mr. King's worldview that he should seek to make them comparable. A cheap point, I know, but still a point worth making given the number of people popping up in support of Mr. King and Black Lives Matter, and making the equally cheap point that bunny ears, the racists, presumably meaning white people, only care about racism when it happens to them, which is frankly weird given the year-long spat surrounding #AllLivesMatter. And keep in mind that no one has been convicted of anything in the Chicago case. But back to the Idaho story. I'm always rather sceptical about newspaper stories about court cases, particularly when they are not reporting what was said at the trial but quoting reaction, and particularly when the reactions being quoted are from lawyers in an impending civil action or lobby groups. Thus I find my spidey senses tingling at this report from The Guardian, link below, relating to the plea bargain by John Howard that allowed him to plead guilty to an assault charge, thus escaping jail. According to R. Kenneth Rourke, one of the lawyers in the civil case, the plea agreement is an abomination, and the in-court comments by the prosecutor, if accurately reported, reflect a perverse compassion for the perpetrator of a sickeningly violent act. The Idaho Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence goes further, using the Bastion of Truth, Facebook, to express Deputy Attorney General Hemmer's actions and statements dehumanizes the young man who was heinously penetrated and fuels and sanctions our culture of sexism, racism, ableism, domination, aggression and violence, and in turn the state of Idaho, the office of the Idaho Attorney General is complicit in state-sanctioned sexism, racism, ableism and violence. But hang on, presumably the prosecutor would not have shown perverse compassion if there were evidence that could be supported in court. And as shocking as that list of state-sanctioned isms is, isn't it rather dehumanizing to just pick an ism and throw away the key? Or is this just me? And indeed, I have seen people picking up on the Idaho case in light of the Chicago alleged kidnapping and channel Shaun King to claim, however, You can be sure that the book will be thrown at these idiotic lowlives, unlike the white teenage boys who inserted a coat hanger into the rectum of a mentally disabled adopted black boy in Dietrich, Idaho. One of these perpetrators has already walked free. Indeed, it so perfectly mirrors Mr. King and Media Matters that one might almost suspect it is the work of a paid chimp. Yes, Howard has escaped jail, but he has pled guilty to assault and has been placed on probation. In order for him to walk free, it would have been required that he were found innocent. Or am I missing something? Oh yes, I know what it is. A basic understanding that criminal trials are held in court and not in the newspapers or on the interwebs.